Well, still talking to a bear. This is about soullessness and the other. Encountering soullessness in the other is an entirely different phenomenon from encountering soullessness in oneself. Because usually what one encounters are the outer layers of soullessness, the defensive stances, behavioral acts, and deception that can accompany soullessness. It is a rather rare phenomenon to be allowed direct entrance into a more interior, shamed, traumatized, and numb sectors of soullessness within another. As these are among our most protected and guarded places, special trust or extraordinary circumstances seem necessary in order for these inner layers to be exposed to the observing presence of another. Often it is an earned privilege. In the best scenario where trust runs deep and the container to hold suffering is strong, psychotherapy offers one protected context where shame, trauma, and unfeeling can be unrecovered, metabolized, and transformed. That is bullshit. You know why? When I am around people that have soullessness, I still speak to their souls. Well, my soul speaks to their souls and then tells my dream eyeball to tell my voice box to tell my brain something weird that that soul might want to hear to hopefully unleash it from its jar of prison. Prison, not prism. But instead of these tender places, what one generally encounters in the other are the defensive behavioral manifestations of soullessness, its outer rings. These are the heartless acts committed in everyday life. When this heartlessness moves into calculated strategies and I really want to go into a lot of heartlessness in people that I know, but I'm not gonna. When this heartlessness moves into calculated strategies to deny the significance of others' being, then soullessness moves into outright evil. To align with and enact one's numbness is to identify with soullessness. To identify with one's evil acts produces additional layers of defensiveness and distancing. Shame can turn into shamelessness, where overt false pride in committing shameful acts takes over. Quit assuming my intentions through my vocalization skills. You have no authority to even attempt to say what you think my body is going to do because of what comes out of my mouth. To identify with one's evil acts produces additional layers of defensiveness and distancing. Shame can turn into shamelessness, where overt false pride in committing shameful acts takes over. Shamelessness and deception then become layered on top of evil behavior, adding extra coating to soullessness. Each new act of evil can produce another layer of shamelessness and deception. The defensive barrier against the sensitivities of the soul in oneself and others thickens. That's because the other person that has soullessness, their soul is literally trying to blanket out over me or others to get them to wake up these people that are living in evil or soullessness. The defensive barrier against the sensitivities of the soul in oneself and others thickens like a blanket, with distortions of perceptions accruing. The shamelessness and deceit that collect around the commission of evil acts generate a climate of skewed perception, deception, and subterfuge. I see every emotion that you exert. You can't hide from me. Your soul will tell me what's going on. Maybe not in a material way, but in a psychological way, I will know when you're feeling different emotions. The attempt to cover up past evil can acquire new acts of evil, accompanied by new levels of demonic deceit. The tendency towards escalating of evil through increasing layers of deception seems to occur once there is a need for cover-up. Paranoia. This is why I always tell the truth, so I don't have to remember anything. Paranoia. This is mine. Paranoia is another word for laziness. You're not paranoid. You're lazy. You don't want to go out and think about doing mechanical things like how to fix stuff and how to get places and how to do things and how to solve problems. So you become paranoid because paranoid is also another word for sloth or emotional laziness. Tendency towards escalation of evil through increasing layers of deception seems to occur once there is a need for a cover-up. Paranoia can take over when attempts to cover up past misdeeds fail. This dynamic was revealed in a dream eyeball, in which a man seeking to cover up a sexual misdeed is at risk of being seen and thus thwarted in his cover-up by an innocent bystander. In a moment of irrational desperation, paranoia, and misjudgment, he murders the innocent bystander. A sexual misdeed followed by failed cover-up escalates into murder. Each new act of deception generates a new burden of paranoia and delusion for the soul, treading down the path of soullessness because the soul wants you to open up and follow the yellow brick road. Follow the yellow brick road. Follow the yellow brick road. But you don't want to. Because when the yellow road approaches, the evil comes by and reminds you about the evil done. So you have to listen to the evil to cover up the evil, and you only get farther away from the yellow brick road. But if, like to quote Dalai Lama, if we taught every 8-year-old child on the planet how to properly meditate, we could eliminate violence on this planet within 1 generation, which is typically 20 years. And this is all you got to do. Sit down with your foot by your penis or vagina and use your right foot if you're right eye dominant and use your left foot if you're left eye dominant. And you're probably going to have to either quote me on the fact that closed-eyed meditation turns your feet into mirrors and you only look at your dinosaur reflection so that you don't have to worry about, I don't know what's in there, there is no spoon. I don't know what's in there, there is no spoon. So you run from the evil that's not really evil because it's just you. An example of soullessness was another conveyed to me by a friend who had worked as director of religious education at a church. The priest was an alcoholic who was personable and friendly, but also abusive. He had previously been demoted from a high-level diocesan position. After Mass on Sunday, he would inappropriately kiss the women on the lips. In a disagreement with the former religious education director, he had pushed her up against the wall. The situation became so extreme that 8 professional staff members of the ministerial team at the church wrote a joint letter to the bishop asking for his intervention. The bishop refused to get involved or to deal with the abuse and alcoholism. Instead, put the situation back on the staff, telling them that they would need to work with the priest. The staff obtained the assistance of the psychologist who had been a Jesuit, but the therapist didn't address the issue of addiction and abuse. Subsequently, feminists on the staff were targeted for the problem in the organization. The director of religious education. Women do not cause wars on this planet. It is men that cause all the wars. Women may cause wars at home, but they do not cause wars of country. Period. Men are the violence. Men are the problem on this planet. And men better start listening to the bear, or the 6th mass extinction is going to happen one day in one way or another. The director of religious education not only left her job, but the church as well. Yet for some, the bishop's betrayal of the church staff brought about a turning point of seeing evil. Encounters with evil in the other can evoke a profound shattering within the soul, instigating upheaval in major life transitions. They can single-handedly disrupt the entire meaning structure of one's life. To be on the receiving end of another's identification with any of the layers of soullessness is a truly frightening experience. I am on the other end of my ex-wife's soullessness. She has my children that came from my testicles, remember? It's traumatizing. And there's nothing I can do about this. Because she has the cords wrapped around her finger. So what do I do about it? Nothing. When in doubt, do nothing. Spend no energy on it. Because I have no reason to spend any energy on someone who has soullessness. It gives a chill to the whole ones of one's being, a cast of pall of doubt over the very meaning of existence. To encounter soullessness in another is to question soulfulness in oneself, and by extension, to distrust the principle of soul running through the web of life. So profound is the challenge that witnessing soullessness in another unleashes. It can bring us to stillness, silence, grief, despair. I'm going to add suicide. It rocks our very being, sending shock waves throughout our existence, shattering our foundations, ripping us from the zone of familiar attachment, rupturing the instinctual desire to be in life, altering the soul forever. When speaking of evil, there is merit in differentiating systematic evil from interpersonal evil. We all live with systematic evil as a daily reality. Not my fault you don't have money. Not my fault you may not be as smart as you want to be able to do higher paying jobs. That's the systematical evil. We all live with systematic evil as a daily routine. It is so pervasive as to be normalized and go unrecognized, especially if one's life on the privileged side of this equation, if one is a member of a non-target group. Just remember, the people that work at the lesser stores in poverty, we're the doers. We do stuff for the makers. What happens if the doers stop doing stuff for the makers? Our economic system, our racial history and structures, our gender arrangement, institutionalize and enshrine oppressive social structures. Oppression is a form of systematic evil, defined by Erica Shurova Marcuse as the systemic routine, day-to-day, pervasive, institutionalized mistreatment of a group of people for no other reason than that they are members of that group. People are gay, right? Maybe they were really born with a female brain, and it was a birth defect, and that's why that guy is gay. Have you proven that? Can you prove it's a birth defect? Because it was considered a mental illness until the 50s. And every gay man I've ever met, I've tried saying things to convince him he's not gay. But I'm pretty sure his brain is a female brain, because a female brain communicates faster from left to right. So from the left to the right hemisphere, a female's brain communicates faster. He probably has a female brain, and there's no reason to judge him and be mean to him. He's my friend, but he's not getting my penis like he thinks. He's very perverted, but he's funny. Oppressive structures are the externalization of numbness and are fundamentally dehumanizing. They systematically deny, distort, and demonize the significance of others' being. Along with systematic evil, the interpersonal encounter with evil is deeply disturbing to the soul, because evil now has a human face. When the encounter, you know what I see when I look around society? I see nothing but a bunch of robotic faces. If I went to the bar, everybody I would see would have a robot face. Why? Because they're stuck in the internet, man. When the encounter with evil moves from being impersonal to interpersonal, the soul is profoundly challenged to metabolize the experience. The soul tries to make sense of it. And then it just disturbs me more because I can't make sense of your robot face. This has to do with the way that the soul metabolizes experience through the personal dimension through personifying. You know why I can't make sense of your robot face? Because robots don't have strawberry blood. You do. The process of metabolizing a personal encounter with evil becomes even more challenging when one knows the person and admires or loves the individual for certain other characteristics and qualities. Because the soul comes to knowledge through personifying dynamics, an interpersonal encounter with evil is particularly chilling and stilling. The consequences of evil may be far greater when transmitted intrapersonally through systematic processes of oppression. When yet abusive power dynamics are enacted intrapersonally, rather than perpetuated and delivered through an impersonal system of injustice, evil becomes personal, presenting an all too human face. When the transmission is personal, the soul is directly confronted with the raw face of evil. The human face of evil creates a particular burden for the soul on the receiving end. Technology is the devil. It does help us. Dreams are goodness. We have flipped this around to believe technology is goodness and dreams are evil. That's where humanity went wrong. The human face of evil creates a particular burden for the soul on the receiving end. Evil acts based in numb hearts deny the passionate nature of the soul from which all meaning of life is ultimately derived. Hence, the awake soul that encounters the soullessness of the other is cast into states of meaningless and despair. I have spent 10 years trying to figure out why my ex-wife has soullessness and why I even married her and why I didn't notice this. And I have not gotten anywhere. The temptation is go to sleep precisely at this moment. William Stafford names this tension poetically, for it is important that awake people be awake. The darkness around us is deep. Witnessing the capacity for evil in the other can evoke shock and disbelief, which then grow into confusion, meaningless, and despair. The taint of evil is so disorientating to normal perception, it can temporarily obscure the ability to perceive beauty. I recall one morning awake from a dream in which I was unable to perceive the beauty in nature, something I knew so well. In order to reaffirm to my senses of the reality of beauty and re-anchor myself in the ability to perceive beauty, I spent that morning gazing at spring flowers blooming in a basket, attempting to portray their delicacy through paint on canvas, while the sunset looked like a strawberry milk sky. Please, Miss Tumbles, stop. I will give you away. I will send you to my landlord's house. There's nothing wrong with you. I'm not letting you outside to get pregnant. One natural initial response to evil in the other is denial. We do not want to see or believe that this person could be so bad. We still want to belong to this person, to this community that has gone sour, yet meant so much to us in the past. But if from a desire to think well of the other, or to belong to the other, or to think well of the community, or to belong to the community, we deny evil that is really there, the soul will suffer the consequences of this denial and self-deception. They are nothing more than one-sided conversation. If one persists in denial due to the desire to belong despite to presence of evil, one must go numb, enter into soullessness, and begin to collude with evil. One must lose contact with the feeling parts of oneself, sacrificing some of the soul's sensitivities. Evil is like a vortex that sucks people into its force field. At a certain point, one is either pulled further into the vortex or one must take a stand and eject itself from it. Pseudo innocent is Rollo May's term for the adult retreat into childhood naivete. I don't know that word. An adult fixation on childhood never outgrown. I'm still a 7-year-old child as far as I'm concerned. Because that's the age that I switched eye dominance from left to right. Facing issues too big and too horrendous and to contemplate, we shrink into this kind of innocence and make a virtue of powerlessness, weakness, and helplessness. It is this innocence that cannot come to terms with the destructiveness in oneself or others, and hence it actually becomes self-destructive. Innocence that cannot include the daimonic becomes evil. It is possible to collude in the dynamics of evil even though one did not intend to commit evil. The longer a person lives within a field of evil, the more likely it is that one will begin to collude with evil, carrying out actions on behalf of the evil field. Often within a field of evil, there is a figure who is leading in the evil doing. This figure may engage in acts of intimidation, interrogation, and humiliation in order to enlist collusion of members of the group. Maybe your stepdad did that. The control of information and interpretation are necessary to maintain this closed system. Those invested in maintaining the closed system will use their power to enforce their interpretations and define the interaction and rules of the system. Evil requires a higher purpose to justify and cover its actions. Each evil action will require justification on the basis of some higher principle. This higher justification for lower deeds creates an additional layer of confusion for those caught within a field of evil. It is one aspect of the fog of confusion that must be sorted out in liberating oneself from an evil system. A fog of confusion about what is me and what is the other can reign over the field of evil. It is one aspect of the fog of confusion that must be sorted out in liberating oneself from an evil system. A fog of confusion about what is me and what is the other can reign over the field of evil. When one is inside a field of evil, the entire field can become delusional due to the intentional deception and paranoia being sown into the field by the evil one or one. The intense distrust and reality distortion of the evildoer infects the entire field. Anyone in that field can be contaminated with the paranoia and deception that is disowned and projected outward by the evildoer. Someone that got your wife pregnant, maybe. And the direct encounter with the evil takes one to a place that very few travel willingly or consciously. People lash out against evil and try to move away from it, and those are natural responses. Indeed, it is necessary to preserve oneself in the face of evil, or at least attempt to do so, with all the fortitude of one's being. Otherwise, one risks being destroyed by evil. Furthermore, the attempt at self-preservation in the face of evil is necessary to retain one's most precious asset, dignity. I am not a bear staring at a computer screen that doesn't have dreams. You forget there are 3 of us. Dream of eyeball, bear, computer screen. In addition to self-preservation in the face of evil, it is also important to realize that evil is the place that people sometimes go to descent. Well-intentioned people, the person next door, fortunately, the person next door. That'd be my left eyeball. That's the person next door. Fortunately, very few people make a career of evil, but it is still a place that ordinary people dip into. It is the place that people go to when numbness, shame, and fear of discovery of their shameful acts lead to secrecy, calculated deception, and deceit. Why do people that do evil get congratulated? I know a few. There is an inherently destructive element to evil, for evil constitutes an attack on life, on creation. It is an anti-life force. Yet, in the end, evil is destructive to itself. Ultimately, evil destroys itself, but it can still destroy ever so much in its wake before turning inward and destroying itself. The inherently self-destructive trajectory of evil is poignantly portrayed in the film Downfall, about the closing days of the Third Reich, when evil turns upon itself. Of his own suicidal volition, Hitler and his new bride end up in a ditch covered in petrol on fire. I can't sit like this anymore, man. My legs hurt so much. My knee, I don't even know if I can bend it. I got 2 more videos to do. Oh, my left foot is completely numb. Might be damaged for life. I sat there for quite a while. My right foot's okay. My left foot is completely numb. Oh, but I can feel it, so it's not dead. You know, that's the same color as a basketball cigarette butt. All right, stay tuned for the next video.